When a Hollywood legend sits across from one of late night's sharpest tongues, you expect quick wit and a few playful jabs. But what happens when those jabs turn into barbs picking at a man's legacy? His voice, his politics, even his family. What unfolded on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert wasn't just an interview. It was a verbal cage match. By night's end, Sylvester Stallone wouldn't just be walking out of the studio. He'd leave Colbert with a stunned audience, a cold cup of coffee, and a silence no punchline could cure. The band rapped their jazzy intro as Stephen Colbert stepped into the spotlight with his trademark grin. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest tonight is a man who's punched, kicked, and exploded his way into cinema history, though some would argue it's mostly been the same movie on repeat. Please welcome Sylvester Stallone. The audience roared as Stallone emerged in a perfectly tailored black suit. He gave a small wave, his smile modest but confident. Colbert met him with an exaggerated handshake. "Sly, welcome to the show. I have to admit, seeing you here is a little surreal. Rocky and Rambo in my studio, that's pretty much your resume, right?" The crowd chuckled. Stallone's smile tightened a fraction. "Well, those films did a little more than pay the bills," he said, voice gravelly but warm. "They connected with people." Colbert leaned back in mock contemplation. Sure. And aside from what, 30 or 40 years of playing those two guys, did you do anything else the Academy missed?" A ripple of awkward laughter. Stallone tilted his head, his mouth curling somewhere between amusement and warning. "I guess you missed Creed and Copland and a few others that didn't involve headbands or boxing gloves." Colbert smiled like he'd landed a point. "Touché, but come on, you've got to admit. Most people see you and think one thing: big muscles, big guns. Not a lot of how do I put it Shakespeare. Yeah." "Well," Stallone said, leaning forward slightly, "Shakespeare never took a body blow from Apollo Creed." The audience burst into laughter. But Stallone's eyes stayed locked on the host. Colbert smirked. "Fair enough. But you've got that distinctive way of talking, you know? That slow, slurred Stallone thing. Ever tempted to hire a voice coach? Or did you figure, hey, the mumble made me millions, why fix it?" The air shifted. The laughter thinned. "It's called a facial nerve injury from birth," Stallone said evenly. "Doctors messed up with the forceps. People laughed at me my whole life for the way I speak. I guess I should thank them. Meat made me fight harder." Colbert nodded slowly, his smirk dimming, then tried to recover. Right. And here you are, still doing action movies, even though some critics say you're just milking nostalgia." "I tell stories people care about," Stallone replied without hesitation. "If that bothers critics, they can watch something else." The band fell silent. The laughter evaporated. Colbert shuffled his cards, searching for an angle. "Speaking of things people care about, you've been pretty open about supporting Donald Trump. Is that about politics or staying in the spotlight?" The audience let out a collective "oh." Stallone didn't smile. "It's about making my own choices. And if you think I needed anyone's coattails to get here, you haven't been paying attention for the last 50 years. The host's grin thinned. "Hey, just asking questions." "Yeah," Stallone said, his voice dropping an octave. "But some questions aren't about curiosity, they're bait. And you might want to stop fishing." The tension was thick enough to cut with a Rambo knife. The applause sign blinked, but the clapping was hesitant, as if the audience wasn't sure they were supposed to enjoy this anymore. Stallone's last answer had changed the room. He sat back, shoulders squared, eyes steady on Colbert like a fighter waiting for the next swing. Colbert kept the easy late-night grin plastered on. "You know, Sly, I get it. You've got convictions. But you can't deny your support for Trump-raised eyebrows in Hollywood. Is this about politics or about keeping your name in headlines?" Uneasy chuckles rippled through the crowd. Stallone pressed his lips together for a beat. "Stephen, I've been in headlines since 1976. I don't need anyone else's shadow to stand in." Colbert tapped his cards, unwilling to let go. Sure. But isn't it fair to say your career's been fueled by big brands? Rambo, Rocky, and now maybe a little boost from politics. Feels like you know how to ride the wave when it's convenient. Stallone leaned forward, forearms on his knees, voice low and deliberate. You think 50 years in this business is riding a wave? Try building one. Try holding it up when everyone's waiting for it to crash. The audience applauded louder than Colbert seemed to expect. He raised a hand to settle them. "Hey, I'm just saying you've been smart about staying relevant." "Nothing wrong with that. But don't you think there's a point where you step back? The younger guys take the spotlight." Stallone didn't flinch. "I've been hearing that since my 30s. Funny thing is, the ones telling me to step back usually can't keep up." Another pop from the crowd. Colbert smirked, a flicker of irritation in his eyes. He shuffled his cards, hunting for a new angle. "So, speaking of keeping up, you've got a very distinctive way of talking. It's part of your brand now, but did you ever think about changing it? Maybe some vocal training? Or is mumbling just part of the Stallone charm package?" The laughter was mixed, some genuine, some uneasy. Stallone's smile vanished. "You mean the speech pattern I was born with because of nerve damage? The one that made me the punchline in school. The one I turned into an Oscar-winning performance." Colbert shifted in his chair, still trying to play it off. "I'm just asking if you ever thought it might hold you back." Stallone's gaze sharpened. "It didn't. I'm sitting here, aren't I?" The audience erupted again, a few whistles cutting through. Colbert tried to chuckle touché, but seriously, wasn't it tough dealing with people making fun of you early on? "It was tough," Stallone said evenly, "but I didn't let them define me. I worked until they had to respect me. And if they still don't, that's their problem." Colbert nodded then. Another jab. "Right. But you see how some people might think that chip on your shoulder is why you still take certain roles. No? Proving something." Stallone answered instantly. "Every role I've taken is because I saw a story worth telling, not because I needed to prove something to some late-night host." The crowd reacted again, louder this time. Colbert's smirk faltered. He glanced at his cards, then the audience, then back to Stallone. "Well, if you're not proving anything, maybe we can talk about something more personal. You've got daughters, right?" The shift was immediate. Stallone's jaw tightened. "Yeah, they ever tell you to, I don't know, maybe tone it down, be less Rambo at the dinner table? Or are they just used to dad growling through the mashed potatoes?" Some laughed. Others groaned. Stallone didn't. "Careful," he said, voice suddenly quieter, the kind that makes people lean in. "You're getting close to a line." Colbert tilted his head, playing innocent. "Just making conversation." "Conversation's one thing," Stallone replied, leaning in again. "But my family isn't part of your punchlines." The room's temperature seemed to drop. Even the band went still. Colbert chuckled lightly, hands up. "Hey, I get it. But come on, Sly, you've mentioned your family in interviews. You've talked about them in the press. I'm not asking for their social security numbers here. You're asking for a laugh at their expense," Stallone said flatly. "That's not happening." The audience applauded again stronger, as if choosing a side. Colbert's smile tightened further. "Well, I think our viewers just like hearing about the man behind the muscles. But if you want to keep it all under wraps, that's exactly what I want," Stallone said, sitting a little taller. "Because, unlike some people, I know where the line is." The tension became a living thing. You could almost hear the director in the control room whispering, "Do we cut to break?" Not yet. "This is gold." Colbert tried to reset. "Okay, let's bring it back to the career." "No, let's not," Stallone cut in. You've been poking at me since I sat down my films, my voice, my politics, my family. You think it's clever? I think it's tired, the audience roared in approval. Colbert's cheeks flushed. Sly, it's just the show. It's what we do here. Then maybe this isn't the place for me, Stallone said, voice steady but final. The audience gasped. Colbert blinked, momentarily thrown. You're not. You're not leaving, are you? Stallone didn't answer. Not yet. But the look in his eyes said it was only a matter of minutes. The tension was already thick enough to slow the air in the studio, but Colbert didn't seem willing to back down. If anything, he leaned into it, his voice adopting that half-amused, half-condescending tone he used on guests when he thought he had the upper hand. You know, Sly, Colbert said, eyes glinting under the studio lights. People admire you for your grit, your determination. But there's also this, let's call it, legendary stubbornness. Is that what's happening here? You don't like the questions, so you dig in. You get defensive. Stallone didn't blink. Stephen, I've answered tough questions for decades. It's not about being defensive. It's about respect. There's a difference between asking and poking. Colbert leaned back, smiling like he'd just been given a perfect setup. But poking is fun. That's what my audience comes for. The laughter was scattered, some with him, others shifting in their seats. Stallone shook his head slightly, as if deciding whether this was worth continuing. He finally spoke, his voice lower now, forcing the room to lean in. Fun's one thing. Making someone a target for a laugh is another. I've taken hits in the ring and on screen. But there's a point where you're not looking for truth. You're just looking for a punchline. The crowd applauded, louder than before. A few people even stood. Colbert glanced toward them, his smirk faltering for a heartbeat before snapping back into place. All right, he said, drawing the word out. Maybe we steer away from the punches and talk about your softer side. You've always played these ultra-masculine, indestructible guys, but is that really you? Or is Sylvester Stallone just as much a character as Rocky? That one landed differently. Stallone leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice calm but heavy with meaning. I've never been indestructible. I've been broke. I've been rejected. I've been told I'm nothing. Rocky wasn't a mask. It was the truth, a part of me that refused to quit when everyone else said I should. The applause swelled again, but Colbert was already talking over it. So you'd say you've never played a role in public? Never thought, hey, maybe I should give them what they expect, even if it's not really me? Stallone's brow furrowed. I don't fake it. Not in the ring, not on camera, and not in this chair. Colbert gave a mock incredulous look. So you're saying this, he gestured between them, is 100% authentic Sly Stallone? That's exactly what I'm saying, Stallone replied. His tone was flat, but the way he locked eyes with Colbert made it clear. The patience was running out. Colbert pushed anyway, even when it comes to politics. The crowd groaned softly, sensing the trap. Stallone let out a short breath. We've already been there, Stephen. You really want to go around again? Hey, my job is to ask the questions my viewers want answered, Colbert said, feigning innocence. And my job, Stallone shot back, is to decide which ones deserve answers. A loud cheer cut through the tension. Colbert glanced toward the crowd, weighing his next move, disastrously decided to double down. Okay, then maybe your family will answer for you, he said, the smile on his face not reaching his eyes. Your daughters, they've been in the public eye. They've done interviews. Have they ever told you maybe you should, I don't know, retire the tough guy act? Be more relatable. The shift in Stallone's demeanor was instant. The easy posture vanished. His jaw clenched. Leave my kids out of this. Colbert raised his hands like he was disarming a bomb. I'm not attacking. "I'm just you are," Stallone interrupted. "And I'm telling you, that's the line. You don't cross it." Up. The audience broke into longer applause. Some people whistled. Colbert tried to mask his discomfort with another joke. "Hey, no offense, Mente just thought the audience would like to know." "They don't need to know anything about my family," Stallone said sharply. "They came to see a conversation about my work, not my dinner table." For the first time, Colbert seemed rattled. His usual rhythm slipped. All right, he said quickly. "We'll keep it on the career. But tell me this, when you take these new roles, the streaming stuff, the reality shows it because you still love the work, or because you can't stand not being in the spotlight?" The audience let out an audible ooh. Sensing the provocation, Stallone sat back, staring at Colbert like he'd just been given permission to drop the gloves entirely. "You want the truth? I could disappear tomorrow and be fine. But I work because I've still got something to say. And because I earned the right to say it without someone like you trying to twist it into a headline." The applause was immediate, drowning out whatever Colbert was about to say next. In that moment, it was clear to everyone the host wasn't in control anymore. Colbert tried to force a laugh. All right, Sly. I think we should cut to—" "No," Stallone said, leaning forward, voice firm. "We're not cutting to anything. Not until I finish." The entire studio went silent. "I've been respectful," Stallone continued. "I've answered your questions. I've let the jab slide, but you've made it clear you're not here to talk. You're here to score points, and I don't play that game." Colbert's smile was gone now. He looked down at his desk, then back up at Stallone. "So, what are you saying?" "I'm saying," Stallone said, pushing himself up from his chair. "You've got one more question before I walk out of here." Gasps from the audience filled the room. Colbert blinked, caught between his instinct to hold on and the realization that he might have just pushed his guest too far. And then, with every camera locked on them, he slowly set his cards down. The studio had gone so still you could hear the faint hum of the lights above. Cameras were fixed on the two men. Colbert, sitting back in his chair, stared at Stallone like he was trying to read the ending of a book he hadn't written. Stallone, still standing, loomed over the desk with a calm intensity that made his earlier patience seem like a distant memory. Colbert tried to ease the tension with a chuckle. "One more question, huh? Sounds like I should make it count." The audience tittered nervously. Stallone didn't smile. "Make it worth my time." There was a pause. Colbert tapped his cards against the desk, eyes flicking toward the camera before locking back on Stallone. "All right, you've built a career on being the underdog who never quits. But here you are threatening to walk off because the conversation got uncomfortable. Isn't that quitting?" Gasps shot through the audience. It was a gut punch of a question, and Colbert knew it. Stallone didn't flinch. "You think walking away from a stacked deck is quitting? No. Quitting is staying in a game that's rigged against you just to keep someone else happy." The crowd erupted into cheers and applause, some even standing again. Colbert held his hands up, trying to speak over the noise. But the momentum was gone from his voice. "This isn't a game," Sly Colbert said, leaning forward now, perhaps hoping to reclaim the upper hand. "It's a conversation." "No," Stallone replied, voice hardening. "It's a performance. You've been playing to the crowd since the first question. Every jab, every smirk, every little twist in your wording. It's not about truth. It's about a reaction. And I'm not here to be your setup man." The audience clapped again, but there was an undercurrent of disbelief now, like they knew they were watching a moment that would trend within the hour. Colbert opened his mouth, closed it again, then finally said, "If that's how you feel, maybe we should wrap this up." Stallone took a half step back, nodding slowly. "Yeah, maybe we should." He reached down, unclipped the small microphone from his lapel, and placed it carefully on the desk in front of Colbert. The sound of the metal clip hitting the wood was loud in the silence. The camera operators instinctively zoomed in, catching every second. "I've been doing this a long time." "Stephen," Stallone continued, his tone softer now, but still edged with steel. "I know the difference between a good conversation and a cheap shot. You want ratings, you'll get them. But you're not going to get them at my family's expense or by twisting my words into something they're not." Colbert shifted in his seat, glancing toward the producers offstage. "Sly, nobody's twisting, you already did," Stallone cut in, his voice sharp enough to slice through whatever Colbert had planned next. "And I'm done." The crowd erupted again, this time in a mix of cheers, gasps, and murmurs. Some people clapped in solidarity. Others just sat frozen. Stallone turned toward the audience, giving them a small, appreciative nod. Then, without another glance at Colbert, he stepped away from the desk. As he passed the first row, a woman reached out to shake his hand. He clasped it briefly, smiling faintly, before moving toward the side exit of the stage. The cameras tracked him, catching the way the studio doors swung open, spilling in the harsh white light from the hallway beyond. Colbert tried to regain control. "Well, ladies and gentlemen, Sylvester Stallone, everyone give him a hand." The applause that followed was awkward, scattered. It wasn't for him. Backstage, producers scrambled to figure out what to do next. The segment was blown, the scheduled banter gone. Colbert shuffled his cards again, looking like a man who'd been dealt a hand he couldn't play. "We'll be right back," he said quickly, forcing a smile as the show cut to commercial, but in the audience, and in millions of living rooms that would later see the clip. The moment was already locked in memory, Stallone walking out, head high, while Colbert sat in silence, his smirk gone for good. And just like that, Sylvester Stallone walked off The Late Show, leaving Stephen Colbert with nothing but silence and a whole lot of questions. But now we want to hear from you. Who was in the right here, Stallone or Colbert? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this one is going to keep people talking. If you enjoyed this story and want more dramatic moments from the world of celebrity interviews, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss an upload. Your support keeps these stories coming, and trust me, the next one is going to be even bigger.